Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Sonic Multiverse. Today, we'll be continuing the story of what if Tails became infinite. Without further delay, let's jump right in. Just outside the borders of the destroyed Sunset City, two figures approached. One was a red guardian carrying a massive purple emerald, and next to him was a pint-sized blue hero from another time. Knuckles was telling tales of how he almost defeated the entire Eggman Empire single-handedly, not at all exaggerating the details. There I was at the altar, protecting my island. Eggman had sent about a gazillion Death Egg robots. I took out about 500 of them, but they finally got the jump on me. I was dragged away by his guards, and it seemed with me out of the way, he was able to conquer the entire world. But now that I'm back, things should be looking up for the Resistance. Classic Sonic simply rolled his eyes. Knuckles went quiet for a moment. And maybe when everything's back to normal, we can figure out what happened to the Master Emerald. He looked up at the gemstone. The once beautifully green emerald was now a sickly shade of purple. Classic Sonic seemed perplexed. He'd never seen his Knuckles this down. He placed his hand on the Echidna's boxing glove. Thanks. You know, you're not a half-bad sidekick. The young Sonic glared. Okay, partner? Classic still seemed unamused, but their conversation was interrupted with a sudden booming noise in the distance. Looming over the city was a pair of Death Egg Sentinels. The massive mechanical titans were laying waste to the city. In the distance, Classic Sonic and Knuckles could see Resistance fighters racing out of their headquarters to help the civilians. Looks like they could use some help. Come on! Sonic gave a confident smirk before racing off far ahead of Knuckles. No matter when he comes from, he's always a show-off. With that, Knuckles raced after to support the heroes. Down in the trenches of Sunset Heights, Resistance fighters were doing their best to battle against the smaller Badniks, but the Death Egg Sentinels were far more than any of them could handle. The titanical metal Cyclopses turned their gaze towards these freedom fighters below, but before they could open fire, a voice got their attention. Hey, Bolt Brain! Anyone order a fastball special? Knuckles hurled Classic Sonic directly into the eye of the Death Egg robot. As the hedgehog recoiled, the glass protecting the laser was cracked, but not shattered. At the very least, the heroes had gotten the attention away from the rebels. Now they just had to deal with the squadron of giant mechs looking down at them. Alright, we got their attention. Now what? Classic Sonic didn't respond to Knuckles' valid question. He simply shrugged. What do you expect me to do? To just fight them all on my own? The hedgehog smirked. Not that I can't. It's just...
Alright, Robo-Punks. Open wide.
An unfamiliar voice echoed through the streets, before suddenly, a figure quickly swung by the two heroes. The figure leaped off a rooftop, swung off of a flagpole, before finally coming face to face with one of the mechs and throwing a box right at it, with a lit fuse. In a moment, a series of fireworks went off right in the Death Egg robot's face, scorching it, along with this hero's tail. The figure dropped to the ground.
Woo! And ow! Woo and ow!
She quickly brushed off her long tail.
Well, not my best performance, but I'd say that's one for the...
She looked up, noticing that the scorch marks had done very little to actually damage the Death Egg robot, and had only gotten their attention. Shoot. The massive Cyclopses unleashed their heat vision. But just before the lemur's goose was cooked, a blue blur quickly grabbed her, racing her all the way back to where he and Knuckles were previously standing.
Oh, wow. That was close.
You okay, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just... Oh my gosh. You're...
Yep, it's me, Knuckles.
You're the Sonic the Hedgehog. Although, I'll admit, I always thought you'd be taller than this. Still, it's an honor to be rescued by you. The pint-sized Sonic simply smirked, much to the echidna's annoyance.
Anyway, we need to take down these Death Egg Sentinels. Now.
Right. Okay. What's the plan, Chief?
Well, since I'm clearly the strongest here, I'll deal with most of the robots while you deal with the one that's already injured. I'm sure you two can handle that. Without another word, Knuckles ran off of the rooftop, gliding towards the Death Egg Sentinels.
The Hedgehog and Lemur were left alone. So, I don't think I've introduced myself. The name's Tangle the Lemur. Classic Sonic simply gestured to the fight. Right, probably not the time for small talk. So, why don't we get down there? We can't let that red guy have all the fun, right? Classic Sonic chippered up. Clearly, this lady was now speaking his language. The pair jumped off the rooftop, preparing to join the fight with the Resistance. The battle raged on for some time. Tangle took full advantage of her prehensile tail to keep a high ground advantage, getting all the smaller badniks to focus on her, and not the spin-dashing blue blur about to shred them to bits. Knuckles, meanwhile, was clinging to the side of Death Egg Sentinels, tricking them into shooting upon their own brethren. One by one, Eggman's invading forces were collapsing, until there was only one Death Egg Sentinel left, the strongest of the batch. It was the very same Super Badnik that had survived a direct hit from Classic Sonic and Tangle's liberal use of fireworks earlier in the invasion.
Ugh, this guy's tougher than the rest of them. Every time I try climbing up, he just knocks me off. I'm sure if we could just break through that eye of his, we could bring down that mech.
Tangle pondered for a second. You know, I might have a way to get you boys up there.
In a matter of moments, Tangle prepared her tail into a makeshift slingshot. Are you sure this will work?
Of course! Me and my best friend used to do this all the time. Of course, she had a hard shell, and you're significantly more fleshy, but I'm sure you'll be fine.
Wait, what? Without another word, Tangle launched the pair of heroes directly towards the Super Badnik. It charged up a laser, but just before it could fire, Classic Sonic and Knuckles smashed through its cybernetic eye. Inside the robot's eye was a bunch of wiring and electronics. All right, start smashing everything you can find. The pair ravaged through the machine. Wires snapped, circuits were shattered, and hard drives were broken open. Classic Sonic and Knuckles eventually made their way to the core of the robot and discovered just what made it so strong. Powering the mech was not one, but two Chaos Emeralds. Like the Master Emerald, their color was off, but these Chaos Emeralds, as gray as they may appear, were still insanely powerful. Classic Sonic ran over to grab them, but hesitated for a moment, sensing some serious bad vibes off of them. But then, he snagged them once more, knowing this would bring down the Death Egg robot. Knuckles punched a hole in the hull before gliding Classic Sonic to safety as the mech exploded in the bay. As the heroes touched down, the rebels sung the praises of their three heroes. However, there was an underlying dread. They knew that if Eggman was willing to risk two Chaos Emeralds, whatever he had planned must be big. Everyone agreed it would be best to go back to Resistance HQ for now, patch their injuries, repair their machines, and prepare for whatever Eggman may throw at them next. Little did they know, the orchestrator of this invasion was counting on that.
All according to plan. Time to show Eggman what I'm really made of.
As the heroes walked into the Resistance HQ, they were given a warrior's welcome from all the Resistance fighters, before making their way to the communication hub, where they met Espio, Vector, and Commander Tower.
Knuckles? It's good to see you're still around.
Huh, as if Eggman could ever take me down. Although, I suppose Short Stack here helped a bit. Classic Sonic rolled his eyes. Speaking of, where's Charmy?
He's
Not doing so good. Tails broke his arm up pretty good.
The room went silent for a moment.
What's funny, Red?
I'm sorry, just the idea of Tails doing that to someone must less charm me. You gotta be joking.
Haven't you heard the rumors? Yeah, I know about him. I also know Tails. I know he would never.
Knuckles paused. He looked down at the young Sonic. He looked white as a ghost. SBO tried to be tactful.
I'm sorry you had to learn this way, Sonic. But Tails... Robotnik did something to him, and... He turned your friend into a psycho who's been tearing apart our soldiers for the last 6 months. Vector. What? It's true, isn't it? Knuckles punched Vector right in the gut. Don't you ever talk about Tails like that again. Oh yeah, tough guy? You wanna go a few rounds?
As the brutes began to butt heads, both the commander and SBO tried to restrain them. That's when Tangle noticed something pinned to Vector's back. She used her tail to quickly pluck it off.
Hey, what was that for?
Sorry, dude, but I noticed this weird doohickey on your back. Do you know what it could be? The commander took one look before spouting out, "Destroy it now!" Tangle flinched before crushing it with her tail.
Eat!
Oh, problem solved. What was it exactly? As if to answer her question, the wall adjacent to her burst open with a fiery inferno. Everyone in the hangar ducked for cover as debris was shot all across the room. As the dust settled, 2 figures emerged from a gaping hole in the building. Fascinating. A more intelligent enemy would have noticed that tracking device by now. But I guess you're too stupid to watch your 6. Floating there was Infinite, and next to him was a familiar face in unfamiliar armor. It was none other than the newly recommissioned E-123 Omega. The walking arsenal was now sporting a crystallized exterior, made of a similar material to the gemstone on Infinite's chest. The commander spoke up. "Agent Omega, stand down now." Infinite responded for the machine. "He's no longer your servant, Commander. In the name of the Eggman Empire, you are all tried with high treason, and the penalty is annihilation. Resistance is futile, but please, resist." Then Infinite's eyes turned to the smaller Sonic. For but a moment, he paused, before loudly stating, "Omega, open fire!" Ruby Omega unleashed a hellstorm of pink lasers into the room. The rebels ducked for cover as the lasers passed right over their heads and destroyed the main monitor. Sparks flew, shards of glass fell, and their best chance of calling in reinforcements went up in flames as the computer exploded. In the chaos, Knuckles charged forward, getting in close to Ruby Omega. He attempted to land a meteor punch on the robot, only to be kicked aside by Infinite. The Echidna was sent across the room, smashing through a nearby wall. He tried to get up, only to be blasted in the face by the Fox. Now, Guardian, no need to get up. I'll be right with you." Infinite turned to Ruby Omega. "These type of buildings should at least have 2 floors beneath them. Move throughout there and eliminate all rebels. Round up any leaders. They could still be useful to us. I'll make sure to lock off any exits. We don't want them escaping, after all." "Affirmative, Master Infinite. Though I cannot guarantee those generals will be in mint condition." "I'm fine with that." Ruby Omega charged down the main hallway, continuing his rampage, as Infinite blasted the wall they had just came through, bringing it down, with all debris blocking off any escape route the heroes may have had. Just as he finished, Tangle and the Chaotix jumped onto Infinite, tackling him to the ground. This worked for about 2 seconds. The Fox performed a barrel roll with the rebels still on him, launching them all towards Knuckles. As they landed in a pile, Infinite blasted the ceiling above them, burying the group in debris. All too easy. Then the fox turned to Classic Sonic. Everything had happened so fast, and the hedgehog was still frozen in shock. You know, it's fascinating. The energy you give off. It seems familiar to my Ruby. The implication of this are truly fascinating, but I'm a very busy fox these days. So, either stay and play hero or get out of my way. As if snapping out of a trance, Classic Sonic ran down the hall, further into the rebel base. Smart move. With that, Infinite flew off to go through the base and systematically destroy all possible exit routes to ensure the destruction of the Resistance. Classic Sonic ran for what felt like miles through the rebel base, before finally losing the strength to keep running. He collapsed to his knees. He felt his arms shake violently. He had never felt this afraid and guilt-stricken. There must have been something he could have done. Maybe if he had stuck around after the White Space event, maybe he could have stopped this. Maybe this war wouldn't have raged on for so long. Maybe Eggman wouldn't have won. Maybe Tails would still be Tails. With that dawning thought, Classic Sonic fell still, more still than he had been in his entire life. But now that he wasn't running, he could hear something in the distance. Gunfire, explosions, rebels crying for help, and an enslaved walking arsenal laying waste to all of them.
Foolish meatbags, your feeble resistance ends here.
Hearing all this unfold, Classic Sonic knew what he had to do. He may not have been able to prevent this, but he could bring an end to this war. With that, he got up and raced headfirst into battle. Elsewhere, the alarms were blaring, and non-combatants were trying their best to escape from the base. Among them was Cream the Rabbit, whom was trying to convince Charmy Bee that they had to find an escape, despite the Bee's insistence that he could take on Infinite, even with a broken arm.
All right, let me at him. He got lucky last time, but this time I'll sting him for sure.
Charmy, you're being really brave, but also really silly. We gotta get out of here now.
Aw, come on, what's the worst that could happen?
The Bee confidently marched forward, turning a corner, only to see a masked fox standing in front of him.
Oh, I think I have a few ideas.
And this is where we'll be leaving this what if for right now. This episode was supposed to cover more events, but it turned out to be a lot longer than I was expecting. So I've decided to divide this part of the story into 2 parts. But don't worry, I'll be hard at work so that we can finish this story sooner rather than later. Hopefully. Anyway, I'm Comic Fan 13. I hope you have a good day.